Hello everyone, I thought I'd share my project with you today. I'm going to be painting this chair, and I've had a couple of people ask me recently about painting fabric, so I thought I would do a little video and show you how I do it and just give you a few tips on how to get the best results. A lot of people have asked me, can I paint fabric with Autentico? And the answer is absolutely yes. You're better off to use the vintage paint rather than the Versanti. So that's the vintage, which is the original chalk-based paint. The reason being, it's more pliable. So when you put it on the fabric, it's going to be nice and soft, and you're not going to get the paint just sitting on top of the fabric. It's actually going to soak into the fabric, and you're almost dyeing the fabric really with the pigment in the paint. So I've been looking for something to paint, and luckily, very kindly, Jackie from Girl with the Green Truck had this old chair sitting around in her house. It was actually a roadside find, and this beautiful chair, as you can see, but all this fabric is really stained, and the cats have obviously been having a bit of fun on there too, because it's all been scratched, and you know, it really needs to be made over. So she said I can do what I want with it, so let's hope she likes what I'm going to do. So I've already given this top bit here a coat of a neutral colour, because I've got some other plans for that, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'm just, this bottom bit here, I'm going to try and paint in a bit of a sort of faux leather effect. So the first thing I've done is taped off, and I've also put some glad wrap around the arms, because I did find when I was painting this top part, because part of the process of this is that you water the paint down, it's quite flicky, so when you're painting you can get little flecks of paint on the arms, which is a bit annoying. So I've just covered those with glad wrap just to protect it. I mean, obviously if you're going to paint the arms anyway, then you won't be too worried about it, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the arms yet, so I thought I'll just give them that extra protection. So the most important thing when you're painting fabric is to water down the paint. You don't want a thick layer of paint sitting on top of the fabric. You want it to soak in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just decant some of this paint, and I'm going to water it down. I'm going with the colour Makeover mustard, so that we get a nice kind of mustardy yellowy base for that kind of leather look. And then I'm just going to add a bit of water, just so the paint flows nice and easily. This can's been open for a while as well, so it's thickened up anyway, so definitely needs to be watered down. I think I can put a bit more in there. You're much better off to do lots of thin layers rather than one thicker layer. Now, as well as watering down your paint, you want to make the fabric damp, so that the paint will just soak into it. So I'll spray the fabric too with my spray bottle of water. Can you see how that's nice and runny, that paint now? I might even put a little bit more in there actually. Okay, that's better. So the paint's moving really easily. Okay, and now I'm just going to spray the fabric and make it all nice and damp. Feels good. So I'm just going to paint a layer of the Makeover mustard all over. I'll probably end up doing maybe 3 coats of this. I'll see what the coverage is like, but Better to do thin layers and more layers than to do a thick layer. You don't want that. You don't want crusty paint sitting on top of the fabric. Okay, so I've got the first layer of Morpeth mustard on here, and I'm just waiting for it to dry. So now I'm just going to start working on the top bit here. And what I'm doing here really is a bit of an experiment. I am going to use the mint decoupage paper and decoupage onto this. So that's why I painted it in a bit of a neutral colour, because I want to keep the colours that are in the decoupage paper. I don't want them to be affected by the colour that's underneath, and I certainly didn't want those stripes showing through. So I've just put, that's a coat of almond on there, just to give a neutral background for the decoupage image. And I haven't done this before, so I'm kind of thinking that the iron-on method of decoupage is probably going to be the easiest way to do this. So I'm just going on with a layer of straight PVA glue, basically. In fact, I'm going to do 2 or 3 layers because I really want to make sure that I've got a good layer of the PVA there to grip onto the decoupage paper. And because it is fabric, I'm thinking it's probably going to soak in a little bit with the first layer. So I've done 1 layer of PVA now, and I'm going to get a second layer on so that we've got a nice thick layer on there. Okay, so this is the exciting bit. I'm going to try and decoupage the image onto the back of the chair. I've done 3 coats of the PVA glue, just straight PVA, not watered down. And I did 3 coats because I wanted to be really sure that I had a nice thick layer of glue there and that it hadn't just soaked into the fabric, because I wanted it to be sitting there so that the decoupage image will stick into it. So I've pinned the image to the top of the chair when the chair was upright, just to make sure I had it in the right place. And then I've just laid it down because I think it's going to be easier to work with like this. And I don't know if you can see, I've just, to make sure that I've got it nice and flat, I've just I cut a strip off the bottom for a start because it was too long. And then I've just cut some little slits here. I'll just bring you over so you can see. I've just cut some little splits in the paper so that it's, can you see that? If you can, hang on. There we go. Just some little splits so that it's lying nice and flat as it's going around the handles. So we make sure we get a nice flat finish. I'm trying to avoid getting as many creases as possible. A few creases we don't mind, but we don't want too many creases on there. So I've got it pretty much in position how I want it. I'm going to put, normally I use baking paper, but I haven't got any, so I'm just using a doubled over piece of tissue paper, and I pop it over the image so that I don't burn it with the iron. And then I've just got my iron on medium heat, and I'm just going to start in the middle of the image and then work my way out. And the warmth of the iron is going to soften up the PVA, and that'll stick the image onto the chair. So here we go. Okay, so I've got my decoupage lady on and she's looking really good. It feels just like leather and it actually looks like leather too because of the colour, so I'm really, really pleased with it. So I'm just going to let her dry and work on this bit again. So I've got 2 coats of the Morpeth mustard on there, and now in between coats it's a really good idea to just give it a light sand so that then we'll get that nice smooth finish like leather. So I've got 400 grit sandpaper here, and I'm just going to give it a light sand all over with that. Okay, so now that's nice and smooth. I'm going to do another coat, but I'm going to use Morpeth mustard, but I'm also going to mix in a little bit of ox blood. So I've watered down a little bit of that colour, same as I did with the Morpeth mustard, and I'm just going to blend a little bit of this in to get some red tones into the finish. So we'll start with the Morpeth mustard. Again, it's nice and watered down and thin. And then I'm just going to start popping on a little bit of the ox blood and just blending it in. So I'm going to put a little bit around here. And along here. So it's just starting to build up the tones for the leather. Because the paint's watered down, it's really easy to blend it in, but if it's not blending well, just get your spray bottle out. Give it a little spray. Just move it around really easily. And this lady up here is looking just like leather. I'm going to bring you a bit closer actually, just to show you the texture. Hang on. Hopefully you can see there what the decoupage paper's like on the fabric. It really is just like leather. I'm so pleased with the way it's turned out. I think the colour helps as well, so it just gives a really leathery, and even feels like leather actually. So I'm really, really pleased with the way that's turned out. So she's nearly finished. I've just blended in around the image there. She didn't quite reach the edges of the chair, so I've just put some Autentico dark chocolate, and I just watered it down the same as I did with the other paints, and just blended her in around the edge. And I brought the paint over onto the decoupage paper as well, to sort of blend it in so that you couldn't see that line where the edge of the decoupage paper was. So I just painted it over, and then when the paint was still wet, I've just used a soft damp rag just to soften the line there so there's no straight lines visible. Now I've just made up a bit of a wash as well with the dark brown paint, dark chocolate, sorry. So I've got that nice and runny, and I'm just going to put a bit of a wash over the top of this, and then I've just got some screwed up newspaper here, and then we're going to take the paint off with the screwed up newspaper, and hopefully it will be left with a bit of a pattern of the brown on top, so it looks like leather. So okay, let's see how it goes. So I'm just scrunched up the newspaper, just opening it up and laying it over the top and rubbing it into the paint, so we're sort of soaking the paint into the newspaper. Take it off. We'll just have a bit of a sort of brown pattern left over the top of the mustard and oxbud, so it kind of creates that leather, faux leather look. So just keep on doing that with the newspaper until you're happy with it. You can just keep on going over the top of what you've done with the scrunched up paper. And if you've got any lines or bits that look very obviously like, you know, you used a paintbrush, then you can just scrunch that out with a bit of scrunched up newspaper. So now I'm really happy with this. And the last bit will just be to put loads of dark wax all over it. So I'm just going to let it dry and then I'll do that and then she'll be done.